Welcome back to the deep dive. Ever feel like you've got a great idea, but it just fizzles out when you try to explain it, like the message isn't landing? Well, this deep dive is definitely for you. We're skipping Communication 101 today. Instead, we're digging into one really comprehensive source to pull out those frameworks, the actionable stuff that leads to genuine communication mastery. Our goal, pretty simple actually, to give you a kind of blueprint, something you can use for, immediate improvements. And basically every conversation, professional or personal, we want to move past the vague advice like be clear and get into the actual mechanics, the things that give you real leverage.
Yeah, and what's great about this source is how it breaks communication down systematically.
Yeah.
It doesn't treat it as this one massive, scary skill. Instead, it highlights three distinct but interconnected areas, all needing deliberate practice. So we're going to look at the skills for your immediate interactions. That's the listening, the nonverbal side of things. Then we'll get into optimizing the message itself, the structure. And finally, we'll cover the habits you need for long-term improvement. You really need all three working together.
Okay, let's unpack that. Starting right where the source says to start. Mastering those interactions. This is foundational, isn't it? It's about focusing outward on the other person. And interestingly, it starts not with talking, but with listening. We all sort of know active listening is important. But this source gets specific. It talks about techniques beyond just, nodding and making eye contact. It details something called reflective listening. Have you heard much about this?
Oh, yeah, it's powerful.
Right. Summarizing what the speaker said, repeating it back to check if you got it right. Like saying, okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, the main issue is X. Because of why.
Exactly. It does a couple of things. One, it proves you're actually engaged, not just waiting to talk. Two, it clears up misunderstandings before they snowball. And three, it often encourages the speaker to go deeper. They feel heard.
Yeah.
And if reflective listening handles the audio input, the nonverbal cues are like the visual track, the context, the source really hammers this home. You need to be aware of your own body language. And critically, it needs to be congruent. It has to match your word.
Congruent.
Meaning, if you say, I'm open to discussion, but your arms are crossed or you're sort of leaning back, people trust the body language. The nonverbal wins every time. And it gets even more specific. It warns against what it calls self-touch gestures. Things like fiddling with your glasses, rubbing your neck, playing with a pen, that sort of thing.
I do that sometimes when I'm thinking.
We all do, probably. But the source points out these are often read as signs of anxiety or self-soothing. They can instantly undercut the confidence you're trying to project, even if your words are spot on.
So that open stance advice is important, but avoiding these little tells is maybe the deeper game.
Precisely. It's about managing those subtle signals that betray internal stress.
That's fascinating, how internal feelings leak out. So if managing nonverbals is tricky, what about delivery? Specifically, tone and pace. How do we project confidence there? Well, the source frames tone as the emotional layer of your message. Projecting confidence isn't about volume, it's more about a steady pace. And crucially, consciously cutting out those filler words, the ums, us, likes, you knows.
Yes, the dreaded fillers.
Right. They basically signal your brain is buffering, that you haven't quite organized the thought yet. The advice is pretty direct. Just slow down a touch. Embrace a brief pause instead of filling it with noise. Silence can actually sound more confident.
And that connects right into empathy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which the source positions as another key interaction skill. But empathy here isn't just feeling sorry for someone. It's an active attempt to understand their perspective, their motivation, their feelings behind the words.
How does that work in practice?
You really can only do it effectively if you've listened, well, using that reflective technique maybe, and if you've picked up on their nonverbal cues accurately. It's about validating their emotional state, perhaps saying something like, it sounds like that was incredibly frustrating for you. Even if you don't agree with their conclusion, acknowledging the feeling.
Opens the door for a better conversation.
Okay, I see that. It builds a bridge. That's a really critical point. If we mess up the interaction part, if we aren't listening or our body language is sending mixed signals, the whole thing can fall apart right there. But let's say we handle the delivery well. The next piece is ensuring the content itself is solid, which brings us to structuring the message. The big principles here seem to be clarity and conciseness. The source talks about something called vertical structure.
Vertical structure. Which means leading with your main point, your conclusion, your key takeaway. Don't bury it.
Get straight to it, state the outcome, then give the backup, the evidence, not the other way around.
So no long windups.
Exactly. And that kind of directness, that vertical structure, it demands preparation. especially for anything important. Trying to think on your feet, structuring complex thoughts while also speaking, especially under pressure, it's incredibly hard. Your brain is juggling too much.
Leads to rambling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. You end up trying to build the argument, find the right words, and deliver it all simultaneously. It's just cognitive overload. What the source suggests is building a mental map beforehand. Figure out your, say, 3 to 5 key points. What must you communicate? Having that map lets you stay focused, even if the conversation takes unexpected turns. You can adapt without losing your core message.
It's like having a compass versus just wandering.
That's a great analogy. It ensures every sentence has a purpose,
Mm-hmm.
helps you cut out all the unnecessary words. Be concise because you're prepared.
Okay, so you've got this perfectly structured, concise message ready. But then there's another layer. Choosing the right way to deliver it, the right channel. This seems like something people overlook all the time, but the source spends quite a bit of time on it. Should it be in person? Phone? Email? Text?
Yeah, the medium matters hugely. Think about the stakes involved.
Right, like a really sensitive performance review. You probably need to do that face-to-face or at least high-quality video. You need all the nuance, the tone, the nonverbals.
Absolutely. But if you're sending detailed technical specs or, a summary of financial data, writing is often better.
Because the recipient can absorb it at their own pace, review the details.
Exactly. Choosing the wrong medium can mean the message just doesn't get absorbed properly, no matter how well crafted it is. It's about optimizing for the listener, not just the speaker. Maybe a complex topic needs a quick email with the key data points first, then a short call to discuss and clarify.
Instead of one long, dense meeting where everyone's overloaded.
Right. It's that strategic thinking about absorption.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. It brings us nicely to the third pillar. We've handled the immediate interaction, we've structured the content. But how do we keep getting better? How do we make it stick? Which is where long-term growth comes in, sustainable habits. The focus here shifts to consistent practice and, really importantly, seeking out feedback, constructive criticism on how you communicate.
Which can be tough to hear, but so valuable.
Definitely. And it's not just about talking more, it's about deliberately seeking out varied and sometimes uncomfortable communication challenges. The source suggests things like volunteering to lead a tricky meeting, giving an impromptu presentation, maybe handling a Q&A session with a skeptical audience.
Pushing your boundaries.
Yeah, getting comfortable in different formats, face-to-face, phone, video, builds that adaptability, makes you more robust. And
Underpinning all that practice and adaptability is emotional intelligence.
yeah.
EQ. The source is emphatic about this. You just can't be a top-tier communicator if your own internal emotional state is all over the place.
So EQ helps you stay calm under pressure.
That's part of it. EQ, as the source describes it, has two sides. First, self-awareness, understanding your own emotions as they happen, recognizing when you're getting defensive or stressed. And then, crucially, managing those feelings so they don't hijack your communication, making you talk too fast or sound harsh or ramble.
Okay, self-awareness and self-management. What's the other side?
Social awareness.
Yeah.
That's tuning into the emotions of others, reading the room, picking up on signs of confusion or boredom or disagreement in your audience.
And then adjusting your message or delivery on the fly based on that feedback.
Exactly. It's that real-time calibration.
It sounds like the ultimate feedback loop, really. Managing your internal state lets you read the external state more clearly so you can adapt better. But here's the bit in this section that really jumped out at me. The source makes a direct, strong connection between improving communication and reading widely. Why reading?
Yeah, that's a fascinating connection, isn't it?
Yeah.
It goes beyond just picking up new vocabulary, although that helps. When you read complex, well-written material, not just skimming headlines, but engaging with, say, dense articles, challenging books, thoughtful analysis, you're essentially training your brain.
Training it how?
You're internalizing complex sentence structures, sophisticated ways of organizing thoughts. You absorb patterns of logic and articulation. It literally builds the neurological pathways for thinking complex thoughts clearly and structuring them quickly. So when it comes time for you to speak, that internalized syntactical library, if you like, makes it easier to find the right words, to build the nuanced sentence you need, without fumbling.
So it's not just knowing more stuff, it's improving the actual machinery of expression.
Precisely. And that builds genuine confidence, not arrogance, but the quiet confidence that you can articulate your thoughts effectively, which then helps you project that confident tone, avoid those filler words we talked about. It all ties together. It's like a preventative measure against shallow communication.
Wow, okay. That really does explain a lot. It connects knowing things to how confidently you deliver them. It's a very holistic view. So let's try and wrap this up. For you listening, what does this all mean? We've essentially unpacked a blueprint for becoming a much more effective communicator. We looked at three core areas. First, being truly present in your interactions. That means things like reflective listening, managing those micro gestures, watching your tone. Second, being deliberate about your message, getting straight to the point, organizing your thoughts before you speak that mental map idea and picking the right channel for delivery.
Hmm.
And third, focusing on long-term growth. Building that emotional intelligence, self-awareness, social awareness, seeking practice, seeking feedback, and surprisingly perhaps, reading widely and deeply.
Yeah, the big takeaway from me is that communication mastery isn't some magic talent you're born with. It's a set of skills, deliberate, interconnected practices you can learn and improve. And if we circle back to that idea of reading widely and handling complexity, think about this for a second. What's the connection between, say, the mental focus needed to really grapple with a dense 500-page book and the focus needed to maintain genuine active listening during a tense 10-minute meeting?
It's the same mental muscle, that ability to sustain focus and process complex input.
I think so. It's about having that mental bandwidth. That's maybe what prevents communication fatigue or burnout in demanding situations. So we've covered a lot of potential adjustments you could make, high-value ones. Maybe think about which habit you want to focus on first, starting this week. Is it trying that reflective listening in your next conversation? Is it consciously building a mental map before an important call? Or maybe it's committing to read something more challenging for 20 minutes a day to build that internal structure. Just pick one to start.
That's the perfect way to end a concrete next step. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into, well, the art and maybe even the science of communicating effectively. We really hope these ideas help you express yourself more clearly, more confidently, and ultimately more successfully, starting right now.